25 to 30 G's at a minimum.
Why do mobsters in The Sopranos look rich but act broke? Today, we're breaking down Paulie and Christopher, the perfect example of living from one envelope of cash to the next.
That's my money, Paulie.
The myth of mob wealth has always been more glamorous than its reality. On The Sopranos, no characters embody this contradiction better than Paulie Walnuts Gualtieri and Christopher Moltisanti, two men who seem to embody both feast and famine, often within the same week.
Keep them both.
Christopher, $2,400!
They parade through restaurants in designer clothes, toss money around when it suits them, and yet somehow still behave as if they're one bad break away from foreclosure. The contradiction isn't accidental. It's the point. Paulie, on the surface, lives a modest life. His house looks like a leftover model home from Arrested Development.
Did you like the room, Nucci? Did you think it was nice?
The 40,000 at the end of the week.
If you could transfer...
And his most extravagant expense is the monthly $8,000 Green Grove bill for his mother.
You know, she almost lost the spot at Green Grove. An extra 5 G's it cost me just to hold her place.
And yet, he whines about money like a man counting pennies. This is the same man who once robbed an elderly woman, his own mother's friend no less.
What'd you do, rob a bank? Back in business, D.
Not because he was destitute, but because he wanted to present a fat envelope to Tony Soprano. Poverty didn't drive him to theft. Vanity and greed did.
But it's gonna cost you another 2 G's as a reminder not to fuck it up.
Paulie's perpetual refrain of being strapped for cash is less a reflection of his bank balance than his pathological stinginess. He isn't broke, he's cheap, manipulative, and perfectly willing to rob a nursing home if it means avoiding dipping into his own savings. Christopher, on the other hand, is the poster child for what one might call hood rich. He makes plenty of money, sometimes staggering sums, but it vaporizes just as quickly.
Well, you're telling me you're not using?
What?
You ran out of IHOP like you were on fire.
Funneled into heroin, flashy cars, high-stakes poker games, and whatever latest scheme promises quick thrills. He covers a $57,000 poker tab without blinking, then turns around and whines about expenses as though the laws of arithmetic no longer apply. Chris isn't broke in the traditional sense. He's financially irresponsible, incapable of long-term planning, and perpetually addicted, whether to drugs, attention, or the adrenaline of a new hustle.
Guy hands you a light envelope. It's just the beginning.
The reality is that neither Paulie nor Christopher lives paycheck to paycheck in the way ordinary people understand it. They live envelope to envelope.
Your only problem in life now is you give me 10 points of your take every settle-up day.
In the mob economy, a man is only as good as the envelope of cash he hands over to his superior at the end of the week.
Kick it up to 7.5.
Paulie, as a captain, expects steady kick-ups from his crew.
There's a 6 G minimum every week.
Christopher, as his subordinate, owes him a minimum of $6,000 a week. Do the math and you'll find Paulie earns over $300,000 a year from Christopher alone, before even counting his other earners or his own side hustles. Hardly poverty wages.
I gotta kick my points to that man over there.
But because the structure of the mafia demands constant upward tribute, associate to soldier, soldier to capo, capo to boss, money never feels secure.
12K in there. I took my cut. I'm seeing Al again next week.
Everyone is essentially a middleman skimming off the top, forever scrambling to look flush without necessarily being stable. Complicating this is the problem of laundering.
Crystal, gentlemen?
Keep it coming, honey.
Cash is easy to spend on dinners, hookers, or shiny cars. Much harder to funnel into real investments without raising alarms at the bank. As the late 1990s bled into the early 2000s,
I can't declare X amount of my income.
federal reporting laws and computerized tracking made it increasingly difficult to hide illicit cash.
$9,900.
At $10,000, we're required by law to notify the IRS of the transaction.
Carmela Soprano once naively thought that simply keeping deposits under $10,000 would avoid suspicion, blissfully unaware of structuring laws designed precisely to catch such behavior. A $9,000 deposit actually raises more eyebrows than an $11,000 one, especially when the account holder previously never had more than a few hundred in their checking account.
But I could have used the boost when I was gone, too. Fucking boost.
For men like Paulie and Chris, this meant their wealth was perpetually trapped in a kind of financial purgatory. Too much to be poor, too dirty to be secure. The mob, at least in theory, was supposed to avoid this instability.
500 large, plus 2 points monthly on my shot.
The bread and butter rackets, loan sharking, extortion, prostitution, gambling, were designed to provide steady, reliable streams of income.
65-35. Salud. Johnny, you explain the other thing I want to talk about. Sure.
Smart gangsters expanded into fraud, construction, or union manipulation. The truly daring dove into narcotics.
25 to 30 G's at a minimum.
But Paulie was too old and unimaginative to innovate, content to skim and cut corners on the basics.
At times I had her with me picking up collections. Esplanade. A cigarette.
Christopher had ambition and occasional flashes of entrepreneurial spirit, bootlegging cigarettes, dabbling in entertainment, even working with Tony on Webistics. But he lacked the discipline, focus, and attention to detail to turn any of it into real success.
Said there's a truckload of Italian soup. He says shipment moves Thursday, 6 a.m.
He preferred the thrill of the heist over the grind of the shakedown. In other words, he was better suited for freelance stick-ups than for life in a structured criminal organization.
My nephew, I told him. I'm going to be speaking through him and only through him as time passed.
Tony's mistake was in grooming him as an heir apparent, a role that required consistency, not chaos. The result is a portrait of two men permanently dissatisfied.
You know, she almost lost the spot at Green Grove. An extra 5 G's it cost me just to hold her place.
Paulie hoards money, yet complains incessantly. Christopher spends recklessly and despises the menial collections that constitute mob life.
That's correct. And the bill was $1,184.
Both act out their frustrations in petty squabbles, such as fighting over a $1,200 restaurant tab, a sum that, adjusted for the late 90s, was no small insult.
That's my money, Paulie.
Paulie grabs the cash back after murdering a waiter, not because he's broke, but because he's greedy. The contrast with earlier cinematic mob portrayals is striking. In Goodfellas, wise guys flaunted cash, tipping extravagantly to assert dominance.
About a little promotion, a coupon, 2 for 1.
Twofers.
In The Sopranos, they argue over coupons and fight over bread rolls at nursing homes. The grandeur is gone. What remains is pettiness. This is, of course, the larger point of the series.
They're a glorified crew.
The modern mob isn't the romanticized juggernaut of the mid-20th century, but a faded institution, limping through the new millennium.
Fucking thing is one big ATM machine.
The Esplanade construction racket lines the pockets of the April crew, but for Paulie's crew, it amounted to little more than no-show jobs and scraps.
You know, the government's using electronic surveillance.
Technology, federal oversight, and the shift to digital finance eroded their cash-based ecosystem. By the early 2000s, the mob was reduced to coupon-clipping thugs who kill waiters over dinner checks and complain about nursing home bills. Paulie and Christopher, then, are not so much broke as they are archetypes of mob decline.
How much to paint a different suit on him? Change his face a little.
Pardon me?
Paulie is the miser, cheap, opportunistic, eternally convinced he's owed more than he has.
You shot my foot! It happened.
Christopher is the squanderer, reckless, impulsive, forever chasing respect he lacks the discipline to earn. Both live comfortably enough. Luxury cars, expensive dinners, girlfriends with designer tastes. But their finances are a carousel of short-term wins and long-term stagnation.
It's nothing sacred.
In the end, neither represents the wealth or power the mob once promised. They're simply small-time men, trapped in a big-time myth, living from envelope to envelope, mistaking greed for survival. Subs don't come envelope to envelope. Hit the button once, it pays forever.